So a warm greeting to those of you online, to councillors on committee and all those attending. Going through the agenda, can we have apologies?
Yes, Chairman, I've received apologies from councillors David Cronk and Jamie Pout.
Thank you. Do we have substitutions?
No, Chairman, there are no substitutes.
Increased burden, colleagues on the committee then, with the absence of those two. I look forward to your contributions. The minutes, I hope... Oh, sorry. Do we have any declarations of interest? Oh, let's forget that one, don't I? Thank you. I hope you have all received the minutes, and of course you will all note, committee members, that we did not have a meeting last month. It was cancelled due to insufficient applications being in a position to be heard by the committee. I've been assured by the Planning and Development Manager that despite this, officers were working in the background, drafting and progressing cases to a point when they'll be ready to be presented at the earliest possible committee. And can I remind colleagues that, and I'm sure you'll be aware of this, that there are certain times in applications, for example in section 106, when the timing of bringing applications to the committee is beyond our control. It is not in the interests of applicants or the committee for applications to be presented prematurely without all of the necessary information to make an informed decision. And one of the things that I've been grateful for as chair is that so many of our reports have always been comprehensive, and that's to be welcomed. So we go to agenda item. Do we have a vote? Do we have a proposal to accept the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Back and Beanie. Can we vote for accepting the minutes? We go to the next agenda item, which is the first application on our list, number 26/00266 at Bewsbury Cross Lane in Whitfield. And can I ask the planning officer to present?
Thank you, Chair. So this application before us seeks planning permission for the formation of an additional vehicular access and changes to the driveway in front. This is the location plan and and this is where the new access would be. These are the existing and the proposed floor plans. This is where the new access and then the parking space is. These are just pictures of the house currently from the front, and then from the east looking towards where the new parking space would be, and this is looking from the house towards the parking space and then where the access would be from in front of the road. So we do have one update since the publication of the report. It was brought to our attention via third-party representations and confirmed through our land registry records as well that part of the land or the application site is owned by the occupier of the neighbouring property. However, since then the correct certificate has been signed and notice has been served on the neighbours, and that is all resolved. All material considerations have been assessed and detailed in the report, and the application has been found to be policy compliant, and the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any public speakers for this particular application, so I open it to the committee. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, there was one of the applicants said that there might be runoff on the surface of this, but it has got permeable material according to the report. It conforms to policy T12 of the Dover District Local Plan. And just to confirm that land ownership, as you've already said, that's not a planning concern. The it gets another car off the road basically, and this is on quite a bad corner. So I move to accept the officer's recommendation to grant permission.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Knight?
Yeah, I'd like to second that. Thank you.
Councillor Nee?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the motion because the conflicts, if there are any, are all private matters, not to do with planners. The only question I've got is the submission of the red line plan covers land that's indicated as being highway, which is the verge, and I'm just querying if it were the correct plan. It doesn't change my view of the application. It's just that if it's not the correct red line plan, it's a minor irritation to me, because where the two pieces are sticking out, where the crossover is, I believe should be highways land, because the highways issues then will be to do with the verges and or any reinstatement of the verges, which I think is outside of our remit as well.
So the notice has been served on KCC. That's one of the reasons the correct certificate has been signed, and that was part of the update. Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other contributions? We have a proposal seconded. If the proposal could be read, please.
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their votes? We have 7 votes in favour of the motion. So that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to agenda item 6, which is number 26/00177 at the street in Finglesham. And if our planning officer could please make our presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. So the application outline is just shown here, the application site. So it's adjacent to Finglesham Well, which has been set out in the report as a non-designated heritage asset. The proposed block plan showing the location of the dwelling. So this proposed dwelling is set 18 metres from the boundary here, 10 metres from the boundary here, sorry, and an additional 18 metres from the property across the road here, Chatton House, which has been raised as a concern for potential overlooking. But the distance of 38 metres is sufficient to be to prevent any overlooking to that property. In addition, as shown in the photos here, when I get there, sorry. Oh, there we go. We've skipped too far now, sorry. There's dense planting along the boundary, and details of additional landscaping has been included as a condition. So with this boundary planting and the distance, we consider appropriate screening before that property. The proposals generally are policy compliant. Everything's been quite detailed in the report. It's recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We have speakers to object and support. And to object, could Miss Helen Gray please come forward?
The NPPF has a central theme, the need for development to be sustainable. Paragraph 110 states significant development should be focused on locations that are or can be made sustainable through limiting the need to travel and offering a genuine choice of transport modes, helping to reduce congestion, emissions and improve air quality and public health. In 2017, an application for a dwelling in Marley Lane, 300 yards away, was refused, partially on the grounds that the development was unsustainable, resulting in additional vehicle movements and a need to travel by private car, and would significantly and demonstrably harm the rural character and appearance of the locality, contrary to policies. Fingalsham Well is a historic prominent building from the late 1700s at the junction of Marley Lane and the street. Part of its attraction is the setting of the dwelling within its garden space. This will be lost with the prominence of the building in the street scene and will result in significant harm of a historic asset. Policy HE1 of your recently adopted local plan states that when a non-designated heritage asset is likely to be impacted, harm will be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. There are no public benefits to this proposal. The nature and character of development in the village street, along the street, is for development sitting on or close to the street frontage. This development does not follow the pattern, being more in the nature of a typical suburban dwelling, more suited to larger towns and urban settlements. In contrary to the local plan policy PM 1.1a, which requires the proposal to demonstrate an understanding and awareness of the context of the area and historic and architectural character, appreciate existing build forms and respond positively to it. The design of the building is uninspiring and ill-suited for this location, and as such will adversely affect the character of the street. Noted is the comment on the drawing where damage has been caused to the existing wall by vegetation. This will be removed by future residents, opening the site up to wider views for to see all the poor quality of the dwelling that the officers want to approve. The proposed access serving the existing dwelling has no visibility on the right when leaving the site, creating safety fears, and the new vehicle access is a pedestrian gate at present, which opens out onto the narrowest part of the street, which is a single lane. Invasion of privacy of the direct neighbours has not been considered at all and will grossly affect their quality of life. Please see Mr. Newgate's email. It has been said that the application will allow the applicants to stay in the village. They have only lived in the village for 2 years. We lived in Marley Lane. Can I just thank you very much.
If Mr. Julian Sinstadt could come up, please, in supporting this application.
Thanks for the opportunity of addressing the committee this evening. My clients, Mr. and Mrs. Dolder, who over a period of 60 years have lived in and out of the village, Mrs. Dolder was there for a long time, wish to build the proposal to secure their future in the village. Their current residence, Fingalsham Well, has numerous steps, a steep staircase and extensive grounds, which have become a struggle, particularly with Mrs. Dolder's recently diagnosed pulmonary disease. The site is located within the village boundaries in accordance with policy SP4 of the adopted local plan and is therefore acceptable in principle with council policy for development. Upon establishing this, we submitted drawings for pre-application advice from the planning department, which was largely positive. However, there were reservations regarding orientation and footprint size. These concerns were duly addressed and amended plans prepared for further comment from Dover District Council, which was positive, and a formal planning application was then submitted. The property will have high insulation values and be powered by ground source heat pumps, and which will address any green concerns. The site has not always been open land as previous Previously, 2 large buildings stood on the site when it was a garden centre and had a separate access. The design of the house is 1.5 stories and has extensive screening proposals as demonstrated on the plans. 2 new trees to be planted and a further young tree to be relocated. In excess of 60 metres of private hedging is also proposed, which will provide wildlife habitat. Comment has been made regarding removal of trees, but these were highly neglected and rotten, and other trees have been lopped at the request of the UK power networks to protect their power lines. There are 2 existing accesses onto the site, although the original one serving Finglesham Well has not been used in recent years. This will be reinstated and possibly slightly widened to account for larger modern vehicles. Details will be provided prior to any alteration to the reinstatement. The immediate adjoining neighbours are in support of the proposal, and there are no properties within a very close proximity. The nearest is over the road, which is also in support, although some objections have been raised. 7 relate to the occupants of only 3 properties and 2 are from individuals from outside the village. Some of these issues relate to a previously rejected application which was outside the village boundary and therefore against council policy. A comparison is therefore not applicable in this instance. It is my contention that there is no loss of privacy or overlooking to any of the neighbouring properties. I hope that you can support my clients and help realise their hopes of continuing to reside within the village which they love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is before the committee and Councillor Nee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of quick questions for our officers. The orientation of the building, I'm confused as to why it should be on the skew and not aligned either to Marley Lane or to the street. And I'd be interested, it doesn't affect my view, I'd just be interested in why, and hearing also there's pre-app advice that would have been agreed with yourselves, just to get a feeling for why you took that orientation as being okay. And I think intrinsic to the application is the fact that the Finglesham Well property is losing its current access. So I would have expected some form of narrative within the report just explaining how that would be dealt with, because it's actually shown in the plan as a separate access. Having said that, the street is very narrow and I don't think using that as a vehicular access will be any more difficult than any of the other properties up and down the street, because they've all got an equal opportunity to get bumped by somebody coming down. Again, notwithstanding the answer to the questions, because they're only of interest to me, I move that we accept the officer recommendation on this as well.
Thank you for the questions. Although I wasn't quite sure what the question was on the second point, perhaps you can come back to it. For the reason for the angle, partly because of the non-designated heritage asset, so it was decided to ask for the angle away slightly, but mainly because it's on a corner plot, so it provides a slight transition for that corner and visual interest, and that's the main reason for it. If you could perhaps be a bit more specific.
Okay, so on the second one, that within the narrative of your report, there's no discussion about how Finglesham Well will gain access to this garage that's shown on the plan. So it's the narrative explaining, because the two are so closely aligned, you know, Finglesham Well needs to make that access, otherwise they've got no vehicular access. So I would have thought within the narrative there might have been an explanation of how Finglesham Well would have been dealing with their access when it's actually shown on the plan as part of the report. That's all.
Thank you. So at the moment, Finglesham Well has the 2 accesses. So the one that's proposed for the new dwelling and one that's being retained for its own access. I think the purpose really is to make sure that both properties have their own curtilages, their own vehicular accesses, and they both have sufficient parking to meet their needs. I think, as set out in the report, both accesses have adequate pedestrian and vehicular visibility. So I think it's just utilising the two accesses that are there at the moment to make sure that both have adequate access and egress. Hopefully that answers the question. Councillor Lee, does that?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. It's just that this, as far as I can understand, this has been a vehicle access in the past. It is now a pedestrian access, but for the purposes of the application, it is reverted to a vehicular access. So that is a change to its current use. And it's just, I would have appreciated in the narrative that it was included, that's all. I still move that we accept the report and the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this conforms to SP4, no harm to residential amenities, also conforms to the local plan and the MPPF. In the list of conditions, it clearly states at 9, obscure glazing before occupation. The distance between one house is 38 metres. Distance between the second house is 27 metres. So I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Could you go back to the picture which shows the hedging, please? It's not coming up. It was a different. Yes, that one's fine. I was rather intrigued by this and went out to have a look, and I was very much struck by all those tall houses, and I was aware of the power lines as well. And I'm wondering if it might be possible to have TPOs put on the trees there, which would safeguard a certain amount of privacy for the house and also a bit of screening for the residents across the road.
Thank you for your question. We're not able to put a TPO on as a condition, but what we can add as an additional condition is a retention of the existing planting. So we've already got details of the soft landscaping, but this would be like a belt and braces approach, that phrase that we often hear. But then that would provide, say, retention of what's already there. So then hopefully that addresses that. The TPO process would be a separate matter, which you could approach with our tree team, and then they would be able to progress with that.
Okay, could I request that then, please, to add it to the your recommendations, the conditions? I don't know if people would support that.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I see that one of the planning conditions, number 12, is soft landscaping, including tree management. And if we can make it perfectly clear through our conversation here with officers that at the very least, the tree should be assessed for quality and value, and depending then whether or not a TPO was necessary, then that would follow through. But I think hearing Councillor Williams' concerns, seeing the picture as well, I think it's valid that we keep as much of that planting as we can within reason. So I think that condition covers her concerns. As long as you guys take it on board when the conditions are submitted for approval.
Just to clarify, so we can't require, if the trees are of a sort of good quality and value, that the TPO is put on, but we can require that those trees are retained through that condition. So it's separate from the TPO process, but we can secure those by condition.
Councillor Back. Councillor Knight.
Just a quick one. That's interesting, and I appreciate Councillor Williams bringing that up, because it's an area that I was intrigued about, especially when you've got when you're talking about policy CC8, which is actually requiring trees to be planted. So, can you just explain why we're having trees planted and yet we cannot look at the TPOs? Because if it's a policy that we have to plant 2 trees now, I don't understand what the problem is with protecting what's already there.
Yeah, so it's a separate process under the Act. So looking at a planning application, let's say we can require the protection of trees that are deemed to be important. We can do that by condition. So in effect, it has the same outcome, that the trees are protected and aren't lost. A TPO process is separate from a planning application. I say that's not to say that it couldn't be separately pursued, and indeed if Councillor Williams wanted to approach the tree team, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to sort of have those negotiations. But in terms of this planning application, as I say, it's a separate issue, but we can deal with it by condition.
Just for clarity, because you know I like clarity, CC8, we are planting 2 trees. What are the protection and moving forward on those 2 trees that you're planting? This is just, I know it's been probably drilling down too far, but if you're insisting on planting 2 trees, what are the protection moving forward on those 2 trees that you're planting?
Yeah, so in particular regard to this application, which is providing 2 trees, as I say, there would be a condition that requires 2 trees to be planted and retained. So again, there's sort of the retention element within the condition itself. On larger schemes, so setting aside this application, there are other mechanisms that we can use as well. But for this, it would just be that 2 native trees are planted and thereafter retained.
Before we go to the vote, I'm just thinking, I suppose, primarily of paragraph 2.34, given the objectors' raising of HE1, because the KCC Archaeology have not provided us comments. I assume they still haven't provided us comments, and the HE3 weighs heavier. Is that the case?
Unfortunately, no, we still haven't received comments from KCC Archaeology, but in these instances, that's what the safeguarding condition's for. So it's not dismissed entirely, as still that option to preserve any potential. So as I think I've set that out in paragraph 234. But the wording of that condition is to make sure that if there's anything found in the ground, it is preserved and the relevant actions taken.
Yeah. I always take it that if KCC don't make a comment, then they're happy with the way we have got proceeded, or do not have anything material to suggest. We have a proposal before the committee, if that could be read out, given that amendment as well to the condition.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, there is a motion to approve the application, which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation, but with an amendment to the slight amendment to one of the existing conditions regarding the retention of existing trees to make that explicit. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I ask Jenna to start the vote and for members to cast their vote? We have 7 votes in favour of the motion, so that motion has been carried and the application has been approved.
Thank you very much. We move to the next application. That is 25/00202 Clanwilliam Road in Deal. And I'll hand over once again to our...
Thank you again, Chairman. The application site is outlined here, and the elevation drawings shown. I've included the street elevation, which shows I think I've set it out in one of the paragraphs, that we believe that the new dwelling provides a transition between the shorter buildings and the taller buildings along Stanley Road. So as the application states Clan William Road, but it does front onto Stanley Road. And it's just example photos from the street scene there. So where the red car is, that's where the proposed house would be set out. So there's been concerns set out in the report relating to materials, but the windows are amended from UPVC to timber, because it's within the conservation area. And the application says it's a balanced report. However, it's policy compliant within settlement confines and is recommended for approval. Thank you very much.
We have speakers to object and to support this application, and I would invite Mr. Roger Bleach to come forward, please.
Section 72(1) of the Planning Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990 requires special attention to be paid to preserving or enhancing the character or appearance of conservation areas. It's considered that this high test hasn't been achieved by the poor design of this house. The proposed two-storey house would be squeezed in between two single-storey garages, and so will be totally at odds with the street scene. The house will be significantly higher than the existing garages on either side and will be a discordant and jarring feature in the street scene, consequently distracting from the special character and appearance of this part of the conservation area. The indicative drawing of the street scene submitted with the planning application fails to show the true impact of the proposed dwelling within the street, which would be entirely contrary to the established character of the area. It's important that application drawings are accurate to scale and not just indicative, so that members can fully evaluate the impact of a proposal. The street scene drawing, which states that heights and levels have not been surveyed, has clearly omitted the slope down Stanley Road and inaccurately portrayed the relationship of building heights, eaves, parapet walls and the effects of scale and massing. So it gives a false impression of the proposal, and I suggest should not be given consideration by members. The applicant obtained written pre-application advice from the Council's planning department for a dwelling on this site. The advice suggested that a dwelling of a storey and a half may be appropriate, given that the building will be bounded by single-storey garages either side. A storey and a half building could incorporate bedrooms within a steeply pitched roof. This would significantly help to reduce the height, scale and massing of the building, and would be far more sympathetic to the specific context of the site. This application fails to follow the advice given by the Council. The current proposal is for a conventional two-storey building, which only accentuates how inappropriate it would be in the conservation area and the actual street scene. The application proposal has a very shallow roof pitch, which would be totally at odds with the much steeper pitch roofs of the existing houses in Stanley Road. Again, this accentuates the inappropriate design for this location. I respectfully ask members to refuse this application. It will be totally inappropriate in Stanley Road, neither preserving or enhancing the conservation area. So it fails to meet the high test and requirements of section 72(1) of the Planning, Listed Buildings and Conservation Areas Act 1990, and it does not comply with policy PM1 of the Dover District Local Plan, which seeks to promote a high quality of design.
Thank you. If I could ask Mr. Richard Sales to come forward, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the applicant for the proposed building. We did a pre-planning application report with the council, and it was approved. And well, basically we just want to build a house there that we can go and live in. You know, we're local people and we just like to live in a nice, warm, modern house. And that's it, really. It's been approved by the planning department, and I think it's all, you know, it's a funny little plot. I agree, because it was never built out when it was originally, you know, back in the 1890s. So there we are. Thank you very much for your time.
Councillor Back.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, Deal Town Council have got no objection. Heritage, no harm to the character and appearance of the conversation area and the conservation area. Already a mix of building styles, minimal overlooking as large church one side and a house next door. No windows in the side elevation of the house next door. 1.4 timber frame windows now instead of UPVC, and lowered roof by 500 millimetres. 2.14 limited overlooking, located in easy access to the town. And the next door house looks like it's a 3-storey. I'm happy with the report, so I move to grant permission.
Thank you, Councillor Nee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second Councillor Back's proposal. There is no uniform style in Stanley Road. There's other parts of Deal where there is continuous terracing where a different style might be jarring, but there is no uniform style at all within this street, or in this road rather. And the potential of the site shouldn't be constrained because there are garages around it. It's completely the wrong way to view it. These garage sites, in my view, are all potential building plots. And when you look at the plot on plan, the width of it, and it is very narrow, but it reflects the narrowness of other plots, particularly in Clanwilliam Road on the other side, which is how it's generated this plot as a windfall. So I can't see any reason why we would want to not accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Nee. Councillor Knight, did you want to?
Yeah, briefly. I agree with my colleagues here. I have to say it's refreshing sometimes to see plots that actually look estate, and from what we can see from the photographs, we're going to be improving it. And I think, you know, also when we're looking at greenfield sites all over the place that are being built on left, right and centre, especially here in Whitfield, when you're looking at sites like this, I actually think a brownfield site in the middle of town, and I think it's a shame some of those garages can't be knocked down and other houses built there as well. So I would strongly recommend we support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Could our Democratic Services Officer read our proposal that was in front of the committee, please?
There is a motion to approve the application which has been seconded, and that's in accordance with the report recommendation. If you wish to approve the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to approve the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. Can I ask Gemma and members to cast their votes? We have 7 votes in favour of the motion, so that application has been approved.
We proceed to our next item. This is application 25/00368, the application for the former boatyard in Strand Street, Sandwich. And if I could ask our officer to make the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the application before you is for the erection of 3 dwellings and 4 flats with associated access and landscaping. Just a couple of points. Reason 1 for refusal needs to refer to the conservation listed building legislation within the reason for refusal. And it was also noted that there's actually 6 reasons for refusal, but one of the numbers had been missed off. So just to confirm that. As set out in paragraph 1.1 of your report, the application site is located within the settlement confines of Sandwich, the Sandwich Walls Conservation Area, Area of Archaeological Notification Area, Flood Zone 2, with some elements of the site to the rear being Flood Zone 3, and opposite a Grade 1 listed building, which is St Mary's Church. This slide, shows all the relevant listed buildings. You can see directly in front is the St Mary's Church, a Grade 1. This just shows you some photos of the site looking down Strand Street. The photo on the left-hand side shows the trees, and these have got TPOs on them. There's 4 of them. This shows views into the site, and this is St Mary's Church on the corner. These trees would need to be removed. And then this just shows you some views from within the site. You can see St Mary's Church looking from the rear, and you can see the property next door. As you can see, it's vastly overgrown. That's why we require ecological surveys. And then looking back again down the site, you can see the trees on the left-hand side. These are the TPO trees, and you can see the adjacent property. This is taken from the rear of the site looking towards St Mary's Church. And this is taken from the local car park with St Mary's Church there again. And this shows you the proposed scheme. The development, proposed development, due to the bulk scale and massing, would form a discordant feature within the street scene and result in harm to the character and appearance of the conservation area and the setting of the listed building. In addition to this, the applicant has provided insufficient information in respect of flooding, ecology, archaeology and trees. As such, the harm of the scheme outweighs the benefits of residential development within Sandwich. As such, the recommendation is for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have speakers to object and to support, and could I ask Councillor Suker please to come forward?
Good evening, members. I'm speaking on behalf of Sandwich Town Council to reiterate the Council's strong objection to this application. The Council considers that the proposed development constitutes an overdevelopment of the site. The combination of 3 houses and 4 flats would introduce a scale, layout and density that is wholly out of keeping with the established character of the surrounding area, resulting in a cramped form of development. Particular weight should be given to the site's sensitive historic setting and archaeological importance. The application site lies within the Sandwich Conservation Area and directly opposite the Grade 1 listed St Mary's Church, now Arts Centre, with a number of other listed buildings nearby. The proposed design includes, including the flat roof, fails to respect the prevailing architectural character of the area. Its height and massing would harm the street scene and would neither preserve nor enhance the character and appearance of the conservation area. The Council is also concerned that given the narrow width of the road and the site's position opposite St Mary's Arts Centre, the increased scale of the buildings would create an undesirable corridor effect, eroding the openness of the street and diminishing the setting of this important heritage asset. The proposed appearance and materials are similarly unsympathetic to the historic built environment and fail to respond positively to local character and distinctiveness. In addition, the parking provision is inadequate for the number of dwellings proposed. Overspill parking on this narrow and heavily used road would increase pressure on an area already experiencing parking constraints, giving rise to highway safety concerns. The proposal would also adversely affect neighbouring residential amenity. In particular, the penthouse element would overlook number 59, resulting in an unacceptable loss of privacy. For these reasons, overdevelopment, harm to the conservation area and nearby listed buildings, inappropriate design, inadequate parking, highway safety concerns and loss of residential amenity, Sandwich Town Council respectively requests the committee refuses planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask Mr. Ivan Del Renzio, please, to come forward to speak in support of the application?
Good evening, Chair and members. I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant, a long-standing resident of Sandwich. The original scheme of 3 dwellings and 4 flats has been superseded with an alternative option, sketch option submitted to the council with 2 dwellings with pitched gabled roofs. We conceded that the original scheme was too large for the site. The proposed scheme, the alternative scheme, resulted in a significant reduction in scale and density. Officers were due to consider the draft scheme in January 2026. As a consequence, policy HE3 of the local plan became applicable. This requires significant archaeological investigation and now likely a dig is required. Design matters could not be fully considered until the archaeological and ecological issues were resolved. The applicant has always engaged positively with the officers and including allowing extension of times, with the current one lasting until the end of July 2026. The applicant is asking kindly that members defer the decision for 6 months until the archaeological matters can be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to Councillor Back and then Councillor Nee.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I don't know what the Speaker expects because we have got to make a decision on what's before us in this report, as simple as that. And he simply can't ask the committee to defer it. That's not a question that should even be asked. So I'm going to carry on with what I was going to say to this report. The impact on the conservation area, KCC Archaeology Officer objects, Environment Agency objects, DDC Heritage Officer objects, DDC Natural Environment Officer objects. The site is opposite a Grade 2 listed church and a Grade 1 listed pub, the King's Arms, so is contrary to listed building and conservation areas 1990, policy SB4, PM1 and HE1. So in my view, and looking at the evidence, this application is in the wrong place totally. So I move to accept the officer's recommendation to refuse.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Nee.
Thank you, Chair. Deferments are a very serious thing for a committee to vote on. And the only time they're appropriate is when we sit as a committee and we either can't agree because there's detail we need further information on. There's no other reason for a deferment. You either have an application that's withdrawn, you have an application that's extended. This application, as Councillor Packer said, is here to be determined, and I second his proposal, and I don't hear any more about deferrals.
Thank you, Councillor Kenton.
Right, thank you. I'll try not to mention deferrals then. Just to give a little positive spin on this, from the original design, you have to appreciate what the architect tried to do. Obviously, they've tried to mirror the mill alongside and a sort of wharf-like look, haven't they, along the riverbank? And fair play to them, they tried it. But even the applicant itself being read out agreed it was too big. So when you've got the applicant themselves agreeing it's too big and too much, it doesn't really leave the committee much room to go. I wouldn't say that, I mean, it'd have to be another new application, pre-app, and there may be something that go on that site, but that site has significant challenges. So it would have to take a lot of work to get something to work. I don't say it might not happen, but this scheme certainly can't work in the form it is. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we can proceed to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a motion to refuse the application, which has been seconded. If you wish to refuse the application, you should vote for the motion. If you do not wish to refuse the application, you should vote against the motion or abstain. So the motion is to refuse the application. Can I ask Gemma to start the vote and for members to cast their electronic vote? We have 7 votes in favour of the motion, so the application has been refused.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
In a moment, we are going to our next item of business. And it is a proposal to exclude press and public. And the recommendation is that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting of the following item of business on the grounds it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraph of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the 1972 Act set out. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Back, thank you, and Councillor Williams to second. Can we vote? We have NEMCON. For those listening and watching online, a resolution has now been passed to exclude the press and the public. I would like to thank all those that have taken the time to watch the public part of the meeting, and could I ask Democratic Services to end the meeting broadcast and confirm when this has been done.